Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today, I have me Dushyant Acharya, who's currently an engineering manager at Google. Now, Dushyant started off as a software engineer. He had led as a staff quality assurance engineer at Visa as well. Subsequently, he got into a bit more of the management side of things in software, and of course, is now leading as the engineering manager at Google, like I mentioned. But Dushyant, can you tell me a little bit more about your background from your perspective and what led you to Google?
Hello, Aryan. Thank you for having me. It's really lovely to be here and talking to you. Well, you started with who I am in terms of my professional journey. I try to consider myself as an engineering leader who is trying to build better software. Lately, I'm focused on SDLC and developer experience on how we can actually create a frictionless environment for our developers and how we can actually increase the both quality and the speed for what we are delivering. There are multiple nuances on when we think about our SDLC, and it's fascinating to see how it does. Over the years, I have pleasure to work with very different domains, different technologies. I started working in AI in 2018 when people were not talking about AI. I spent some time working on crypto and blockchain. I work on fintechs when Apple has just released the Apple Pay. So it's really good to be in experimenting with technology and learning new things as we go. And that's what I actually try to do
Excellent.
always. And if I had to say one thing about my career is it's always a journey. It goes ups and downs, both sideways. But what motivates me is working with good people, helping, mentoring other people, seeing other people grow. That's kind of something which gives me value at the end of the day.
Very good. Well, Dushyant, what was your decision-making process to first becoming technical?
Decision making process for myself.
What was the reason you want to become technical?
I'm not sure if you're familiar with some Indian tiger parenting style, but I never wanted to be technical. I wanted to be a doctor because that's what I was brought up to be.
Mhm,
I joined engineering because, well, I couldn't get into medical. So that
mhm.
was the reason I joined into. It was my luck that I actually fell in love with the challenge
Okay.
of the technology. um, sounds cliche, but I saw one of your other podcasts, and I had a similar story the day one of my college when I am sitting in my classroom and I'm waiting for professor to come and help me how to turn on the computer. I had no idea what technology would bring in, but
Mhm.
as I mentioned, just through the experience and the learning as we go, I started learning and fall in love with what I do and how I do.
What made you fall in love with this, even though beforehand you were not interested in this process?
I think the one of the thing is instant gratification, and the other thing is working with people. So sometimes when you're working in tech, you're always working with multiple groups. You're always working with multiple people, and you can easily see the value you are deriving. Maybe deriving the value for customer might be difficult, but we can always see the value you're giving to other people around you, and that kind of instant gratification is always helpful. Driving and scaling what you do, what others do, it always gives you meaning. And on top of it, I think the people you work with also gives you a different kind of meaning, sometimes challenge, sometimes deep meaning. But that's the other part, that when you're working with good people and they are thriving for something better, it gives you motivation and passion to actually do better than them or compete with them, healthy perspective speaking. I think those two things made me fall into what I do. I
Mhm.
really like now what I do.
Excellent. Well, was that process happening? Because from what I was understanding and from my prior discussions, a lot of software engineers at the beginning of their careers are assigned tasks and they execute them. Now, when it comes to collaboration, I don't know what particular company that you would join and you immediately start collaborating with people, but was this earlier in the career where you were collaborating with people, or was it a little bit later when you took on little higher positions?
I have a story to tell for that.
Hmm.
So I started my career in research and high performance group in India.
Mhm.
And my second company, I started leading a project with 9 people. In a
Okay.
couple of years, I was leading like 28, 30 people, 4 different organizations. And what I realized by that time is that I'm a very, very bad manager.
Okay.
So the first thing which I did, my third company was I did not went for a manager role. I went for the IC role again
Mhm.
because I realized that it's a different skill set for being a manager, and I don't have it.
Right.
I spent few years as an IC, and then I realized that well, I still like being a manager. I still like working with the people and growing people, but I don't have a skill set for it. So I
Mhm.
made a costless decision to do my MBA in a focus of finding out what I should be doing, how I should be doing, and
Mhm.
it was costly, not in just in terms of the fees I need to pay, but it was costly because it took me 4 years while I was working, and it was a
Time.
really huge commitment. But after that, I realized where I need to be, how I need to be, what is important, and that's when I decided that transition to management again is possible, and I made that I think back in 2015. So since 2014 or 15, I'm manager again.
Excellent. When you chose to get your MBA, was it solely due to management, or? And I asked this question only because
Mhm.
I've had a lot of other guests who became principal software engineers or even
Uh-huh.
engineering managers who realized as they were progressing their career and they took on bigger positions, the work they were doing on the technical solution side of things connected very well with business, and that was their guiding force to how they create those solutions. So when you're making the decision making process for management and for the MBA specifically, was it mainly because you want to get better management, or the other components in the decision making process?
Uh, Being a better manager was part of it, but it was not the only part of it. I would say it was half of my reason of doing the MBA. My other half was I've always been a good technical person. As we get our reviews, we get a feedback from 360. You always hear about how good you are technically, and they always ask you to look at the product and customer and the user perspectives, and you try to wonder what that is, or am I doing right on that or not. And I think I just mentioned about being brought up to be a doctor and then going into the engineering. So that was another part as well for my MBA, that I did wanted to go through that self-exploration journey and to
Mhm.
see where I'm good at and what I actually want to do, rather than being like asked to, or rather than being, yeah, this is the only opportunity I have, let's try that. Let's jump in and understand what else I can do, and then make a conscious decision on where I want to go. So I think that was a combination of not all of that,
Mhm.
which led me to my MBA.
Right. And so as you progress from a software engineer to leading at the staff engineer level, I was very curious about that transition for you. When you made that transition, my curiosity is about what you valued as an engineer subsequently. So a lot of the times when I have these conversations, being technical is very good. You can create excellent technical solutions. Now, what's also very important is understanding why you're creating the solutions and what the intended outcome is, the tangible outcomes you want to create for the business of the enterprise. So when you go from a software engineer to staff engineer, what are the major differences in what you focus on as an engineer?
The impact would be the first one. But what you're mentioning actually translate into that side impact.
Right,
When I was engineer, it's more about producing high quality code faster,
right,
and that's pretty much the goal. You don't really need to worry about if the code is working, if my customer is happy, how other teams or other part of our organization is connecting to it. As soon as it became staff, I need to start thinking about those connections, thinking
right,
about those relations, thinking about those design. It was the first time when I actually learned that architecture and design are not the same thing.
hmm,
It's very interesting when you have two people who have really good efficiency in one programming language, but you see that your organization has 80% people in some other programming language, then you have to make a decision to go to that programming language because that's good for the company overall. I don't remember me seeing that kind of perspective when I was at engineer, but I do remember seeing that kind of perspective when I was staff, because at the time you have that kind of responsibility, but also that kind of visibility to give you that depth
right,
of what you should be. But that all leads to that one simple question that at the staff, I think you are focused on providing the impact. And you might hear the word like ROI, prioritization, cross-team collaboration, but essentially it's you're driving towards what
Very
value you're
good.
adding.
When you have that in mind, the tangible outcomes as a staff engineer, when you have those particular focuses, what changes in your thinking process to technical solutions and how you lead?
Oh, first big change was I started doing less coding.
Mhm.
I mean, before I'm a hustler, so I had a really long week of coding. And if I remember correctly, the first time when I became staff, my coding time went from 100% to about 50 to 60%.
Mhm.
And I had one really good manager at that time who told me that if I stretch myself and work more hours, I would probably be good to code as two Dushyant, maybe three Dushyant, but not more than that. That would be your upper limit. But
Mhm.
if you start thinking like a lead, then you can probably get 8 or 10 other people to code almost like you, and that would exponentially increase your output. So first big change which I had to do was reduce the coding and start
Mhm.
uh, planning how you can actually get others to grow on
Right.
what you want to do for that.
Did your thought process and perspective on creating technical solutions, did they change when you were more outcome focused and why you're on the focus on why you're doing this?
Oh, 100%. I think when you're focused on technology too much, uh, I have this saying sometimes which I hear that you have a solution and you're looking for a problem.
Yes.
Because yeah, you have a good technical solution. It's amazing technical solution, but no one needs that. I mean, if your project or your product life cycle itself is say
Mhm.
6 months, when after 6 months your project probably would not be utilized that much, it doesn't make sense to spend 8 or 9 months of
Mhm.
really great technical solution. You can really go with the subpar solution and learn a lot of things and move to the next version very fast.
Mhm.
So I think learning that changes how you design, how you plan, how you distribute your task, and that is one of the big revelation.
Certainly. And if I'm correct and if I'm understanding this properly, this role and some subsequent roles as a senior manager are the first couple times you had the opportunity to lead other people and other engineers. So how was that transition for you? And when you are leading specifically very good talent, did you have a very particular strategy on how to guide them in the right direction?
When I started my career as the manager for the first time, and when I still go back and say that I was not a good manager, I pretty much had one strategy for everyone,
Mhm.
and that is like, this is how I do things. Can you do it like this? And I used to call, I had a word for it. I think I used to call that as a leading from the front, like I'm leading it like this. Can you follow me like the same way or not? And if you do that, you're good. I support you. If you don't, then I can't work with you because it's difficult to say.
Mhm.
Now, when I'm working with a really range of people, and especially lately, like really intelligent people, where I think most of the people I work with are more intelligent than me, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Mhm.
And when you're working with intelligent people, you need to understand that your management style, whatever that is, however good that is, it cannot be same for everyone. So I have 15 people, then I need 15 different styles, maybe 10 different styles, but I need
Because they
different
come with their
styles.
own perspectives. And I apologize for
Yes.
interrupting you, but they come with their own perspectives. They're very competent engineers. So you have to understand these are not normal people you're leading. These are different kind of
Yes.
people. So I'm very curious about how you really approach that. Because like you said, these are probably 15 different type of leadership styles for 15 different people with their own unique perspectives who believe that they're in the right. So how do
Yeah.
you approach that specifically? Because it is difficult.
So I'll give you one example. I believe in radical candor for the feedback. So if my manager comes and asks me how I would like to get my feedback, it'll be radical candor. Be direct. Tell me as soon as you see it. I don't care if 10 people are listening it. I want to see what I could have done better, and probably I'll learn from it.
Mhm.
But then when you're working with other people, so you need to understand that some people may like that, but some people may not like that. They might have something else going on that week, which they are not able to tell you, which is
Mhm.
giving them a momentary dip in their performance, and otherwise you would not even have to give the constructive feedback. Some people are like really want to change, but they are afraid of public humiliation and they want private feedback.
Mhm.
Some people cannot digest untimely feedback. They like structural feedback. Every week you give them the specific one time, and then you give the feedback. Now
Mhm.
that's a very simple thing. I'm going to give the same feedback if they all of them do the same thing, but how I'm going to deliver that has to be different depending on who they are, and I can only do that if I actually know them. If I am understanding them correctly, then I should also understand how to provide that feedback the right way. So it's a small example, but usually the feedback is the part one of becoming a manager. That if you deliver the right feedback the right way, then probably you can do better in the other things as well.
Well, these are larger teams. I'm assuming that you're leading, not just 5 people teams, but rather 10 or 20 or maybe potentially 30, right? So the question for you is, if that is the case, how do you manage that efficiently? Because, like you said, there are different management styles.
So there is something called span and control when we think about the management, and depending on the technology and the age we are in, we routinely change that. But the span is how much people I manage directly, and the control is how much influence I have with my multi-level hierarchy on my management. So even when I had 30 people, it's not that 30 people are reporting to me. I would have the hierarchy within that. I will have TLM, I will have other engineering manager reporting to me. So when you have the system like that, it becomes easier for you to start mentoring that. Now, for me, my span expectation until last year was anything in one digit. I can manage
Mhm.
6 to 9 people very comfortably.
Nice.
10 people and more, I start hitting the limit on that. But
Mhm.
now, this
Mhm.
year is different. This year, AI is helping a lot in what you do, and that I actually can go maybe 12 people very easily. I don't have to
Mhm.
sweat. But that's different with the span and control. So I've always maintained span
Mhm.
reasonably in my career.
Now, one of the most important concepts I've learned from my podcast with principal software engineers and people like yourself is about understanding the correct problem to solve. Now, when you're leading a multiple engineers and there are critical problems to solve and solutions you want to create, my question for you is, how do you identify the correct problem to solve within an organization and therefore lead your team towards finding the right solutions for that?
How? You're asking great questions, Aryan. Okay,
Mhm.
I can tell you're doing this for a long time. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm thinking about how do I answer that well, because the finding a correct
It's
problem
nuanced.
also depends on the ecosystem you're in.
Yes.
So when I work in my two startups, one of them had like less than 50 people in it. Finding a problem is very easy. You have access to all of executives and all of the people, and we have weekly, bi-weekly, and they tell you this is our problem. This is what we are trying to solve for next 1 month. Otherwise, we won't have funding. We'll have to find a new job month after. So it's very easy to see a problem and then apply everything you know, everything you can to find a solution to solve that problem, which is very easy, very short term. You can directly get the outcome. Everything is great. When I'm working in bigger companies, it's a little bit difficult because there's
Mhm.
multiple level of hierarchy, and some people really like bottom-up management, and sometimes like top-down management.
Mhm.
So what I personally prefer is a constrained innovation. So which means that I usually go and ask my leadership, what do you want from me for a little bit medium term, 6 months, say, let's say, and
Mhm.
then that is my constraint that I want to deliver this in this time frame, and then I go back to my team and think about now we have a free room within this constraint. Let's innovate
Mhm.
how fast we can do, and when we are doing it, we are focusing on some of the key things which we should be focusing on to meet that. But that's how it makes a little bit more sense on that.
Mhm.
If I have a free room, bottom up works as well. But that also depends on the external factors, how the company is, and can you do it? Because when you do bottom up engineering, you may end up creating like 10 different solutions, and only three of them actually works out, which means that there's seven which are not working out. And how would you reward those people? How would you actually work with those kind of waste? Which is not actually waste because you're learning something from that.
Mhm.
But how do you go and explain that to leadership is different in
Mhm.
different kind of ecosystem. So for me, it comes down to the ecosystem you're in and the our overall market cycle we are in,
Mhm.
and we have to be flexible, adapting both of them to figure out how do you prioritize the next one.
Excellent. Now, Dushyant, you've been working at companies that prize innovation, which means I'm assuming you also value innovation a lot. But in order for you to have an environment where people can be innovative, you have to have a degree of psychological safety in which people are allowed to essentially challenge ideas and feel like they want to challenge ideas and create new solutions. My question for you is, how do you create an environment that has an element of psychological safety so people are comfortable with that?
Psychological safety is the one of the biggest thing I'm usually focused on. And the reason for that one is I had a period of time where I didn't had either psychological safety or psychological balance. I needed to do my job. And what I learned from that is uh, sometimes we can't give the right answer or the answer my team is looking for. I can't give the direction what they have in mind. Like I won't be able to tell someone at some point of time that you have a job security for 1 year, let's say, right? Because even I don't know that. No one has crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen. Now, when that happens, it starts trickling down everything. From there on, how would you build a psychological safety? So for me, I go back to being authentic in situations like that. Try to remove the politics, try to remove the hidden agendas, try to be authentic as much as you can. Explain what we are doing, why we are doing, and then make sure that you're recognizing the work done. Whether it is the work done on the right purpose, right impact, right outcomes, and the values which you wanted. Maybe the work
Mhm.
done was just a learning. We didn't achieve anything, but maybe we'll learn something for the future. But are you highlighting that as well?
Mhm.
Focusing a balance between what are you saying and what are you doing? Because as a manager, as a staff engineer, as a senior people in your org, you can say really good thing. You can write really great email, but if you don't walk the talk, if you don't show that from your action,
Yes.
it doesn't translate to your team. So
Yes.
that's how you need to be authentic. You need to walk your talk. You need to be driving what you want to do, the others, and then that would be helpful. That's what I try to
Right.
do at least.
Because how you react to new ideas, it sets a precedent of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And if people perceive it's acceptable to challenge ideas, then you're creating an environment that's actually an innovative one people are willing to create these new ideas, challenge existing requirements, and become innovative. And this is very I think this is very consistent with the companies you're working at, especially Google, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, my other question
I'll
for
tell
you.
you.
Go ahead,
I'll tell
please.
you one more thing which comes to my mind right now. So I had a really good manager a few years back, and this is before I jump into the startup world. But he used to ask me, and I still hear that advice once in a while, every few months from different manager. Uh, when you want to find an innovation from bottom up, you create a problem statement which is not achievable. So give a really high bar to succeed,
Mhm.
and then also at the same time celebrate everything they achieve in the journey to that bar. And I've seen that when I have like I want to beat 100 as a metrics, let's just say the number, but I give 250 as a bar. People routinely would end up in 150, and that's how the human nature is. Once you see that something you want to do, you'll try to get as close to that possible as well. So while you're being authentic, making sure that people are giving them psychological safety as you can, then you have to also raise the bar and then remove the impediments they have to do that, and then they'll do really wonderful innovations on the way.
If you shoot for the stars, you might not get there, but you might get closer. And that might be better than with the bars at the lower end. So I can definitely appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
Now, as a manager, and which have you been for a large part of your life, it's very important to have a good eye for talent. But one of the critical components happening right now with specifically engineers is how AI is changing their work. So as AI is affecting and being able to replace certain workflows, my question for you is, from a forward-thinking perspective, are there certain traits that you're looking for and that are going to be more important as AI keeps changing engineering?
I mean, historically speaking, the one thing which I have valued most about everything else in hiring is, can you learn? Um, are you someone who I can invest in and you learn something new? Because most of the time, when you are studying, when you are fresh in your career, you are probably going to work on something which you have not learned yet, because it's a different world when we jump in. So learnability, adaptability towards the how you're going to adapt to the new challenge and learn and grow. That's one of the things. But you're realizing the current age of the AI, and we are now in the first generation of who we say is AI native people coming into the workforce. I do a lot of mentorship outside my work, and I talk to a lot of kids who are either last year they were on the market or they're going to come to the market next year and they're going to look for the job. I try to explain them that you need to understand that when you're using AI, how you're using AI. I personally like to divide like why the AI usage is in three different zones. So the zone one for me is, are you using AI to improve your productivity? Right? Your productivity is anything you do, your chat message, your email, your meetings, your meeting notes. You can use it at n number of things, and that's just going to help you do things better, faster, higher quality. The second one is you're an engineer, you're producing code. How you can leverage AI to do that better. Now, I'm engineer for a long time, so coding is not the only thing you do as a software engineer. But yes, yeah, does coding really great, right? But you need to see where it will help you and how you can do that. Can you understand that or not? And then the third part comes in where you use AI in your product journey, that your product itself is using AI. Now, when you do that, that is more complicated because that's not only generative AI, that's not only chatbot, that's also machine learning, that's also more deterministic AI, and that would require probably more patience and more. But if you can see, if you can show me that you understand the differences and you can show me a really good example of the first and second bucket, I think you can easily do the third bucket. And that's where usually I'm looking for it. I'm not looking for what you have done only. I'm looking for the signals to get me the comfort that you will be doing what I want you to do in future, or because in future I also don't know what I want you to do, to be honest, sometimes. So
Right.
that's why the learning and the growth mindset is very important.
So thought process, growth mindset are components that you are focusing on, especially as AI is now changing a little bit of coding and of course other parts of especially engineering. And one of the things I will say is I've spoken to a lot of chief AI officers recently on this discussion format, and one of the claims that they've made is if your internal business processes, your people, and your systems are inadequate, what AI would do is just essentially amplify that. So this is why you must have a good thought process. You have to understand what these actual resources are, and if you know how to properly use it, then you're amplifying the good aspects of your own abilities. But if your internal abilities are inadequate, it'll just amplify those inadequacies essentially. So I definitely appreciate that perspective. Now, what I'd like to do is actually shift this conversation to a little bit more about you, Dushyant. And one of the questions I did have for you, specifically for you, is like you mentioned, you didn't know how to turn on the computer in college. My question for you is what was motivating you to close that gap so large from not being able to turn on a computer properly to becoming very technical?
Uh, the reason I like your profile, Aryan, was that mind over body and discipline, which you are highlighting in your write-up. I really connect to that.
Mhm,
If and when I have a lot of thoughts, I try to figure out top three things in my mind.
mhm,
So if you had to see my journey, the three things which I have is number one is discipline,
mhm,
because that I think has to come first. I have spent really long hours at a very consistent pace for not just weeks or months, for years in my early career to understand and close the gaps which I had.
mhm,
So that discipline is required. Everyone needs different discipline and different workload. I'm not promoting less or more workload, but you need discipline on what you try to do. You need a vision, and you need to stick to that vision. You cannot give up in the middle. You need that attitude that you would be learning and growing. You need to continuously invest in that. You cannot give up in between. At the end, you need some support because it's stressful to do everything by your own. And if you have people around you who understand and support you, it becomes much easier to do that. Fortunately, I had all three of those over the years, and that is where I actually grew from what I was and what I was here. I'll tell you that the example of not able to turn on the um, computer on my day one. The professor, she came, she turned on the computer and she told me that, hey, don't worry. All of your friends here who already do, they just completed 6-month program on programming language and you're
Mhm.
doing C, C++ at that time. You just invest the time and you'll do what they are doing. So that's like about giving comfort and then showing discipline and then not failing and stopping. That
Very
helps.
good. Is there a particular problem that you overcame in your life that made you change your perspective on yourself?
I hinted something about psychological safety. I think
Mhm.
that's something which I sometimes highlight. I'm a very big believer of bringing your whole self to work and
Mhm.
especially focusing on psychological health, body
Mhm.
and mind both,
Mhm.
actually, that you have to invest in that.
Mhm.
I did not focus on that for many part of my early career.
Mhm.
I didn't focus on my body, I didn't focus on my mind, and I almost broke down at one point where couldn't show up to work for a few weeks.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize how I would come out of it. So since then, fortunately, when I came back from that point, I always try to value that more than anything else. It does drive a lot of my decision making. It does drive how I value authenticity. It does drive how I
Mhm.
value a holistic picture of mind, body, and work, and how you're actually balancing everything together.
Mhm.
I think that's the one thing which I will definitely say. For the people who I'm mentoring, I always tell them. You'll get time for everything and your discipline is required and your focus is required, work is required, but
Mhm.
don't compromise your body and mind while you're doing
Mhm.
it, because getting that back at a later age is much harder than what you think it.
Right. Right. And last question for you is, if someone's meeting you for the first time, Dushyant, aside from your work, what should they know about you?
Ah, I'm student.
Mhm.
I'm a lifelong student. I usually like to tell them. I surprisingly, when someone asked me, and I had told them that I spent 24, 25 years of eh, my life in one other school so far. I really like learning new things, growing in things which I have not known before. So, if you're meeting for the first time with me, I'm student. I like intellectual talking. So, if you have something new to teach me, or if you want to learn something from me, I'm your guy. Let's talk.
Yeah, love it. Well, Dishant, thank you so much for sharing that and your perspective today. And I really appreciated the unique ones you talked about with regard to management and how you see the right way to create psychological safety, and also about being able to find the right problems to solve essentially at the organization level. So what we'll do now is go ahead and conclude the podcast, but I would like to understand where the best place is to learn about you and potentially the work you're doing. Is LinkedIn the best place, or is there somewhere else on the internet that's best for you?
LinkedIn is the best place. Yes, I usually try to check my LinkedIn frequently, and that's one of my MBA speaking. It's my personal brand. So yeah, if you want to connect to me, want to talk to me more, LinkedIn is the best place to go.
Make sure to connect with Dushyant on LinkedIn. Well, Dushyant, thank you so much for joining me. This was our